Welcome to What's Up with the Cummings.
What's up?
What's up? Gosh. Another good workout today. Sore.
What did we do? Well, we're changing it up. Right?
Yeah, we always change it up. Full body workout, intermittent fasting, workout on an empty stomach. That's how we create, growth hormone and allow the body to repair itself through what's that called again?
Autophagy?
Autophagy, yeah. One of those big words that simply is saying that when you fast or intermittent fast, or you go 16 hours without eating, the body gets to go in there and eat away at the toxins and at the things that don't belong in your body. It helps you repair and heal. And that's something that we all need to do to prevent aging or premature aging and things of that nature.
I find it odd that there's a lot of misconceptions about what is really health and what isn't, because we've been in conversations with people on Facebook.
Yes.
And we're talking about, it was just a simple post about, like there was this meme that said, go like 2 weeks without like fats and oils and candy and chips and
sugars.
And then, people are going to comment and then they say, well, I've been doing this for 3 years, I've been doing this type of living, and it's like, I think there are very few people who really understand health.
That's true.
And nutrition.
Or they think they are doing healthy, but
I thought I was doing healthy.
Yeah, and then they end up like with the word moderation, and it turns out that it's like being in denial. They think they're doing something, but they're really not. And then it kind of gives a bad name when people that think they're eating healthy and then they get sick and then they throw it out there, oh, healthy eating and exercise doesn't keep you healthy. Well, yes, it does if you do it the right way. And it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication, to actually live that way.
And that's the thing. There are so many misconceptions about healthy living and healthy eating that when we choose to share our, I guess, extreme way of living, then people are like kind of like offended at times.
Yeah, and extreme for this particular period, because before there were all these junk food and additives and preservatives, people ate whole foods, and a lot of plant-based whole foods were the norm. Nowadays that there's refrigeration, that stores are huge and there's like all these aisles with non-food items they call food. So they consider people like you and I and others who devote themselves to healthy eating as extremes, but we're not the extreme. We're actually the norm. The abnormality is what has taken place in this day and age.
Absolutely. And, there are going to be food cravings that people have. And there's this little handy list that, kind of like really shows what people actually are dealing with, when they crave like chocolate. Well, that's just a signal to your body that you need more magnesium.
Wow.
And those types of foods can be helped by, eating those cravings by eating nuts and seeds, vegetables, fruits, things that have magnesium in them. And then you go into like sweet and sugary foods. That means that your body's lacking chromium, carbon, phosphorus, sulfur, and tryptophan.
Yeah.
And you can easily quench that with broccoli, grapes, fresh fruits, nuts, veggies, cabbage, cauliflower, sweet potatoes, and spinach. The problem is this: a lot of people's palates can't stand some of the things I just mentioned.
Right.
I say broccoli, and people are like, ew, or cauliflower, ew.
Right.
And what is that? That's really all about changing your palate.
Exactly. Doing a fast and retraining your body to eat the foods that you're meant to eat. It's like pregnant woman is a perfect example. They get all sorts of cravings and stuff. It's because the body's creating a new life, and that new life requires certain nutrients to build their nervous system, their skeletal system, their heart, their brain, and things of that nature. Well, mom, things like, oh, I've got a craving for pickle and ice cream. Well, no, it's not pickle and ice cream that your body's asking
No.
for, because your taste buds are so skewed. So breads and pasta, you're actually requiring nitrogen, and you get that by eating dark leafy greens, kale, collards, nuts, and seeds.
And oily foods, which a lot of people have cravings for,
Mm-hmm.
you're lacking calcium. And calcium doesn't come from just milk.
Or
Okay.
calcium supplementations,
Broccoli, asparagus, kale, mustard greens, bok choy, figs, dates, and plums are good sources of calcium.
And when you're like having in for salty foods, your body's actually requiring chloride and silicone. And you get that through eating celeries, which I love, tomatoes, lettuce, seaweed, cashew nuts, and seeds. Very simple, folks.
Yeah. So, I mean, don't mistake your food cravings to mean that you want, oh, I have a craving for chocolate. No, you really have a craving for magnesium because your body doesn't really understand what chocolate is. It didn't grow up in a chocolate environment. It's not like the cacao bean is anything other than a tropical food, isn't it? Isn't it like a tropical?
It's not even real. It's actually, yeah. And
the cacao bean?
Yeah, and it's not really good for you because it's really loaded with caffeine and it really puts a toll on your adrenal system. But, they try to sell it as something healthy. They told it as a superfood, and it really is not. Carob is something that is way better for you, has a lot of great health benefits. Doesn't have any caffeine, it's not addictive, and it's good and gentle in your adrenal glands. I wanted to talk, or do you want something else to say? I just joined a group. I won't mention the name of the group because I want to keep it, autonomy and all that stuff. But it's a group where a lot of FDM guys are in. And, I know that in the past 3 years, we haven't had the greatest relationship with the trans community, based on the beginning of an initial video that we made regarding what we thought about puberty blockers. Yeah. And, hey, everybody has a right to their opinion. And we voiced our opinion regarding what we thought about that. And from then on, it was just like downhill. People were attacking us, so much so that a so-called friend who was an FTM alerted my sponsors at the show, which I had for a very long time, since 2012 to be exact. And they had my sponsors pulled. Well, that became war. I mean, you don't mess with people's livelihood. And I was really upset, about that. And people that I thought were my friends who didn't have an open mind enough to respect different opinions, because that's what I believe is the major problem in this trans community. You're not capable. You want people to accept you, to give you equality, to give you all the things that you want, but you're not capable of understanding other views and having a normal discussion.
Or a compassionate and empathetic understanding of differences. And, back in 2015, if people recall and have been following us in the past, I personally went through some very traumatic events. I mean, I had been in a terrible car accident, and the alienation of my children was very, very difficult to have to handle. And those repercussions kept on, resurfacing every, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. Sometimes it was a constant, tug and stuff on my heart. Right. And it put a strain on our relationship as well. Yeah. And how you were supposed to be perceived now that you were a step parent. Right. And, all of this stuff just really was confusing. Yeah. And, it was very difficult.
Things that I never really even worked through or had to work with when I first transitioned, because, my family didn't accept me, especially my mother. I was like, oh, what the heck? I had been a lesbian since I was 13 years old, or identify as such. So I didn't care anymore what my mother thought. So when I transitioned, I didn't have to deal with a lot of the things that I had to deal with coming in a relationship with you and having to feel like a step parent, and having to feel like, okay, well, I'll do whatever I have to do to get the kids to accept, and, really faced a lot of the demons that I didn't have to face in my initial transition. My initial transition, I was all about advocating and educating. And, I really didn't feel what I was feeling at the time. And I kind of like put it all under the rug. So being with you brought upon a lot of these feelings that created a lot of turmoil within me, which made me question transition, gender identity, and all these things. And, and it's viable things to think about, especially when you've been on this path for 15 plus years. You're like, well, what I did it really resolve anything? And it's okay to question these
Mhm.
things. And the trans community always just wants to like close their eyes and ears and not want to hear other people's views and opinions, that just want to hear their own and push their views on others. But they can dish it out, but they can't take it.
And on top of that, there were people in this group that you were a part of that you didn't even ask to be a part of. Someone actually recommended you
Yeah, put me there
and
pretty
stuff
much.
because you're so into fitness and everything. And you have an experience in it and an understanding of nutrition and the body and how it works. But it's like people always constantly want to remind you of your past. They
Yeah.
never, like, they don't even look at what happened in the past, the good things that you
Oh
did,
yeah.
the years of service that you rendered to the community. It
Hmm.
all has to be like shoeboxed into one, like,
Yeah.
2 or 3 year
Yeah.
period
Exactly.
where, we were, questioning things and may have said things that obviously were not beneficial and helpful. But please understand, people, that these things have been, we're human, and both Mark and I are both very much Aspergery,
Yeah.
and we can get very defensive very quickly. Case in point, just yesterday, we saw that there was one woman commenting. We were practicing on the keyboard and the guitar,
Hmm.
and we saw that this one woman was commenting back on our Facebook and stuff, and we were like, "Oh boy,
Yeah.
here we go again,"
Yeah.
and it was like it was nothing that we thought. We
Yeah. We
thought
thought negative,
initially
and
it
it was
was
positive.
negative, and it
Yeah.
was positive. So these are the things that we deal with on a personal level, and we have to refrain from reacting.
Right.
And
I've been, even when I was completely an advocate, and I had, what's her name, Brendan, on my show at the time, and because to me, a show is about allowing people to express themselves, pro, cons, whatever side, because that's what makes good interviews. Not
hmm
just, you don't just want to preach to the choir all the time. That was the beginning of people like question, how dare you? Like, it's my show, and
yeah,
whenever I want to have on the show, which is a show that I interview people from all over the world and all different views, and that's a good thing. We as humans need to learn to accept other people's opinions, beliefs, and
hmm
views, respect them, not judge them. You don't want to be judged, but you love to judge other people. Open up your minds a little bit and understand that, yes, maybe testosterone is not the way to go for everyone, or
hmm
anyone for that matter, for long term. You know, yes, we have said things about transition is not for anyone, gender dysphoria doesn't exist. I have my views on that. I think the medical community loves to label things, give it a name, so they can then prescribe something and charge
hmm
insurance company. I think no two people have the same condition regarding their gender, their sexuality, and their identity. It's all based on our childhood, past lives, whatever you want to call it. But you can't put everyone in a box and a label. That's dangerous.
and we also want to unequivocally state that our position as of May of 2015 hasn't changed with regards to puberty blockers and what the dangers are that
Hmm.
young kids are being exposed to at a younger and younger age. Now
Right.
they're even recommending synthetic hormones for kids
Hmm.
at a younger and younger age. So those types of things were things that we were very concerned about in the community. And when somebody chooses to go personal and to dig and to cut into someone's financial business,
Exactly, as they did with us.
as
Yeah.
did a person who was supposedly a friend of
Oh
yours,
no.
and recommended to others not to allow us to be sponsored by
Yeah.
these particular companies. They actually took the time out of their day
Hmm.
and they went to these people and they actually advocated against us
Right.
only because of the fact that we were talking about
We had a
the
different
dangers of
opinion.
puberty blockers.
Have a different opinion, and people should be allowed to voice their opinion. That's what makes this America. That's what
hmm
allows freedom of speech. That's what allows diversity. And if you just want to control people's minds and people's thinking, and then constantly what's it called, docking, or trying
Doxing.
doxing, and
hmm
then it's not a good. good practice at all to do. You need to be in a more peaceful mind frame and allow people to think how they're going to think.
And yes, we were at a different place even last year.
Yeah.
That's when we started to set out on our journey. We pretty much kind of wrapped up in that at that
Hmm.
time. But we're very passionate about what we do, and we were very much passionate about, when we detransition, we were very passionate when we retransition, we were very passionate when we were going through what we were going through.
Right.
So we're people that are very passionate, and we put it all out there. All of our information, by the way, is available on YouTube. And for those that would want to say, "Oh, you guys advocated so badly against the trans community and stuff," there are so many more videos that this guy has done that are pro-trans than any of the videos that we did that were anti. And I would want to have, people to plead to people to understand that, take the whole. Don't just take like one piece of the puzzle and then make your judgment based on that. You can't do that because it's not fair to the individual. This person has been an advocate for this community, the trans community, and has been in the LGBT community since they were 13 years old, So this person speaks wisdom because of wisdom gained from years of taking testosterone as a hormone, not just as a trans man, but as a lesbian bodybuilder. So we're talking about a person who knows what they're talking about, has experience to back it up, and has the medical knowledge as well.
And I worked in the medical system for over 20 something years, had my own personal gym, where I had to do clients, well, to do clients come and train with me and with my trainers. I mean, I don't know it all and I don't claim it all, but I do have a lot of knowledge and I've taken the time and the energy to research, to educate, and then try to educate others. There's no need to crucify me. There's no need to like constantly continue to pick at the past. The past is the past. All we have is the now. And yeah, made mistakes. We all made mistakes. You don't like to be crucified. You don't like to be talked down to. So don't do it to somebody else. And just we have to learn through our experience. We have to learn that yeah, maybe I've said some things that you may not agree with, but it doesn't mean that it's false. It's just putting things out there to understand, to have, there's always two sides to every story.
And you're not really there in that group to talk about, anything other than your journey, your own personal journey. And no one is advocating for anyone to do anything different than what they feel they should do.
Just sharing my life. Right. It's like, here I am, 53 years old, going on 54. I am hormone free, and people are like, well, you can't be hormone free if you don't have any ovaries. You need to be on something because my endocrine doctor says that if you don't have hormones, you're going to be unhealthy. That is false. Women, when they had hysterectomy back in the day before there was any synthetic hormones, didn't put any synthetic hormones and they lived. This is all brand new.
And there was no such thing as an endocrinologist back in 1850.
No, none.
I mean, this is all relatively new things. And add to that the fact that science doesn't even understand the human body yet. We just discovered another part of the human body that didn't exist, apparently.
And it existed, we just didn't know about it.
Yeah, but it's like we are removing organs when we even know what organs we have.
Yeah. And what their uses are and things of that nature. So, really have an open mind and don't let your doctors scare you to death about not taking hormones. A lot of guys have written me, private message me, concerned because, when your heart starts feeling funny, when your blood pressure is pretty up there, it's not a good thing. And you have to literally, say to yourself, well, do I keep taking this stuff or do I stop? Because you don't want to like die like a friend of mine died 3 months ago, massive heart attack, and everyone is like all silent about it. What do you think killed them?
And they were under their doctor's supervision. Their doctor was the one that recommended the heart medication that they were using.
Right, and the blood pressure medication. And I've had friends who have had strokes, and all sorts of different and Parkinsonian problems and all sorts of stuff. It's the synthetic hormone. It's as simple as that. But hey, it's your body. You put in it what you want. I will continue to educate. We will continue to educate. We will continue to say what we have to say. You don't like it, you don't have to listen. We're not telling you to do anything different.
No.
You know, you can do whatever it is that you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely up to you. And yes, we were very critical at one point. We were obviously in need of like some healing ourselves.
Of
So
course.
we have been in that jungle. We have been wrestling with those demons, and we have come out as people that are more compassionate, more empathetic, and more understanding of others' journeys, and more realistic, you know, of not being one to spout, but one to listen and one to be compassionate and you know, just to really like identify with the problems that people deal with on a daily basis.
Because they are there. You know, transition doesn't solve it all. Taking hormones doesn't solve it all. Actually, create a lot more problems when you really step down this rabbit hole. You know, people have to realize that it's not all candy cane and roses. That there are going to be issues that you're going to have to deal with, and issues may get even worse. And that should be something that your doctor should be discussing with you and understand where you're heading when you take this path. And that's okay to discuss that. You can't just go hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, and hope that things will go away, because they don't go away.
They don't.
They don't. I mean, that's, you know, and take it from someone who's had many years of living as a trans person, has dated, now married, you know, to our trans person. You know, it's like, it's, there's struggles that will continue to be there, because the transition and the hormones and the surgeries don't take care of the problem. And that is truth. That's not a lie.
No.
You know, and if you're okay with that and you're like, okay, I'm able to deal with it, by all means, do whatever, but don't just not want to hear or call us evil or whatever, because we're trying to spread some truth. You know, live your life, be happy, be well, but understand that there are some truths that are there universally. Anyway, enough about that. I found this article which I thought was pretty interesting. Put it on my wall. We'll read the article. But it's like a lot of people really have like some sort of aversion to the article, like, oh, I'm single, but I'm not lonely, and if I would have stayed in my marriage, it would have been more unhealthy for me, and blah 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 blah. You know, and it's like, yeah, I get you. You don't want to feel defective. No one wants to feel like they're abnormal.
Right.
And you know, when you feel that, hey, what's wrong with me? Why can't I have a relationship? What's the first thing a person actually says? Well, I'm happy being single. I'd rather be alone than not be alone because my marriage didn't work. Well, I'm sorry marriage didn't work, and I'm sorry that you're skewed with, you know, being hurt by that said marriage, but don't let fear or don't let the past dictate your future.
Right. I feel that, you know, a lot of people, you know, there are obviously some that don't, and we can give credence to that existing. But a lot of times people choose singleness because they are afraid of opening themselves up again to being vulnerable, to being loved, to losing love, to experiencing loss, to experiencing pain. And, you know, they then say, well, if it's good for me and it works for me, then this is the default of all people, you know. And, you know, this one woman was just insisting that, the path of singleness is better than, you know, it's more healthy, especially for women, because women can be alone better than men. And it's like, wait a minute, that seems to go counter to how we understand human behavior among the sexes to work, because men are typically going to be the more isolated one, the one to go to the man cave, the one to like separate themselves, to compartmentalize and figure out the problem. Women are the ones that are going to be the social ones, the ones that talk it out, to feel it, communicate, to want to talk. Right. And they're saying that women don't need companionship. It's like it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I think again it's a default of like, well, if I can't get my way in a relationship, and that's what we're seeing a lot today, is people just aren't willing to compromise. They're unwilling to work through hassles. Relationships have a lot of hassles. We've been through a lot of,
They
disagreement.
stretch you, of
Yeah,
course.
and then it's
Iron
like
sharpening
sharpening iron.
iron.
Yeah, and you're like, well, I'd rather be alone than have to deal with this. Yeah, everybody at the moment feels that, because if you can't get, like a child doesn't get their way, wants to have a temper tantrum. Unfortunately, the adults of today have become very much me-centered, and they don't want to work on any type of improvement. Relationships take work. Relationships make you look deep within you and see your own faults.
I mean, I saw that example when we watched American Idol just yesterday.
Hmm.
They're in the Hollywood Week. They're in groups now,
Hmm.
partitioned into groups, and they have to work together as a group.
Right.
And they couldn't remember the song, and they were like giving up.
Hmm.
They couldn't remember their verse, their part,
Hmm.
and these kids were like giving up. It's like, I don't know, but if I was in the situation, I would like really focus and try to do my best, and to work together as a group and to use group dynamics and to be able to mesh with others and stuff.
Exactly.
And I think that people, and no thanks to Facebook, no thanks to Instagram, no thanks to social media and the internet in general, has made us all recluses
Yeah.
and able to just hide ourselves behind a keyboard. People can nonchalantly just come in and blaze a path on their keyboard and condemn someone, or, pick on somebody, or
Yep.
be a bully and not be accountable for it. I
Exactly.
mean, so it's like they choose singleness
Yeah.
because
It's
it's like
easier.
they can't handle having to work in a group,
Right.
not just as a couple, but in a group setting. But the default for all of humanity is that, in general, like if you look at the whole big picture, we are all one single consciousness that's been divided into billions of fragments and people. And not just that, but the planet entirely. Or not just life as we know it has been splintered.
Right.
And we're trying to figure out as humans how to come together, how to work together.
Somebody says, where is the line between compromise versus becoming
Burnt
burnt
toast
toast in
in
a relationship?
relationships.
Well, that is very personal within that relationship. As a couple, when you first either get married or when you first start dating, you've got to set some boundaries. You have to talk. You have to communicate. And if something doesn't jive right with you as an individual, you have to let those feelings known. I know it's hard. Some individuals don't want to be open about what mistakes they're making, and they become very defensive. But somehow, some way, you've got to work that in there so that there is some form of communication, and the person know, okay, hey, this ain't right. I don't understand why you're doing this. Come to some sort of compromise.
I think lots of singles have been taken advantage of, and they can't handle it anymore.
What do you mean by
That
taking
they've been
advantage?
taken advantage of, like
Oh,
they've
with
been
people.
abused in these
Well, but
relationships.
the thing is, how can you allow one or two, three or four, even five bad relationships to skew the next one, because maybe that next one is that perfect one for you, and then you've missed out because you're comparing past relationships to the ones you have now, and that just really is not giving that relationship a chance, and you're not only hurting that other person, you're hurting yourself. It's it's part of being human to allow your heart to just here. And yes, your heart's going to get trampled on. It's going to get hurt. People are going to say things to one another. It's like painful, and it feels like, oh my God, how could you? But that's how we grow. We can't grow if we don't feel. I mean, that's, in my
Yeah, it's
53
like,
years, and I've had many
yeah.
relationships, and trust me, I've had many. I've had relationships when I was 13 years old, and I've had a lot. Do I, regret any of them? No. They've all taught me something and have made me the person that I am today.
And that's the thing, there are so many benefits of experiencing true love. And true love is unconditional. I know that in you, I have found a person who accepts every single part of me. Just like that John Legend song, All of Me. It's like I give all of me because you. I know that you're giving me all of you.
Right.
And, all of me is vulnerable and is in your hands.
Right.
And, when we made our vows, we promised that through the thick and thin, through the good and bad, through the sickness and health and everything, all the issues, that we would continue to love each other.
Right.
And I mean, being able to find love like that is a once in a million lifetimes.
And let me tell you, I have not always been unconditional with my love endeavors, my exes, and things like that. I've always been very conditional because that's how I was taught by my parents. Very conditional, and parents tend to do that with kids, which is not good. So for the first time in my life, why it happened, maybe it's because you are my twin flame and my heart is totally open to you. For the first time, I've been able to love unconditionally, no matter how many times you've hurt me with your words, no matter how many times I've gotten tired of the same situation being repeated over and over again. My brain says, is enough, I'm not doing this anymore, but my heart says, who are you kidding? And that's when you know you love somebody truly, when no matter what happens, you know that, hey, this hurts, but that's part of what you have to go through to grow as a couple.
And as a trans couple, you being a trans man, me being a trans woman, I mean, we have different dynamics than the average couple. Obviously, there are different things that we deal with that others would not deal with, and that's our journey, and that's our thing to deal with. But overall, love is love, and it doesn't matter if you're two women or two men, or a trans man and a trans woman, or a man and a woman. I mean, it doesn't really matter, because what we're after in life is to be loved and to be able to give love unconditionally. And relationships, not singleness, but relationships, allow us to find that way to be.
Exactly. And it's the only way, it's a gift to be able to be in a relationship. People take relationships and they throw it out the window like it's nothing, and this relationship has taught me that, wow, I threw a lot of relationships out that, I could have been better in, or I could have given a better chance, but then I wouldn't be with you. So everything happens for a reason. But it's growth. It's like looking inside a deep window inside your soul. When you're with that person, you learn so much about yourself through them. And it opens you up for so many things and teaches you so many things. It's part of life. You can't grow without relationships and interactions with people. I mean, you could go up on a mountain and meditate like a monk, and you think you've got it all together. And that monk is okay as long as somebody comes and messes with their territory or their thought process, or tells them something they don't want to hear. Then all that goes to your feet. You've got to learn. Like, you can learn all sorts of stuff in school and books, but when you're out in the field and you're faced with real life people, you're like, okay, the book says this. Oh my God, what do I do?
Now it's no longer just a practicing, resuscitation on some dummy. You actually have a living, breathing person there who needs to, to be saved, to be rescued.
Exactly.
And if you don't apply what you've learned, with somebody, I mean, you can't be an island to yourself.
So I don't know if we really need to read this article. Being single will kill you faster than obesity. I think we kind of really touched on it because it's. Yeah. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. But anyway,
I think it's important to understand that being single is not the default for human behavior. Being single is the exception. Right. And I don't think it's forever.
Right. And I think it does cause a lot of health issues because the article title is Being Single Will Kill You Faster Than Obesity, the study says. The beef with the Facebook person I was writing was that the loneliness and single are two different things. They claim you could be in a relationship and be lonely, or you could be single and not be lonely. Well, single and lonely kind of go interchangeably. I mean, you could have tons and tons of friends, but it's not the same thing to have tons and tons of friends and to have somebody to cuddle with at night, to have somebody there listening to your hurt and hold you. I mean, a friend could hold you, but a friend ain't gonna cuddle with you. A friend, it's just a very different dynamic. And I know there are some close friendships out there, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Even animals seek a mate. You know, it's a very normal, traditional thing. As humans, we need that. We need that cuddle, that kissing, knowing that we're loved, knowing that somebody looks up to us, loves us, that if something were to happen to us, that someone is there. When you're in your car accident and you had no one, it was nice to know that, hey, even though you and I had only been together, for a couple of weeks, and we hadn't even met yet, it was all through online stuff, that there was somebody there to watch over your sleep, to make sure you were okay, to wipe your ass, to wipe your tears,
Especially when,
yeah. And, these are things that I feel are important in life, as you get older, especially because no one wants to grow old and be by themselves and, not have just that support, that special bond.
I mean, we saw that beautiful movie, The Notebook, and, the whole premise of the movie was, this guy had been there for his wife who had suffered from Alzheimer's, and he kept coming back every single day and repeating and reading and going through all the things that he had to go through, the dissociation and all that, to have just a fleeting moment of connection with his long lost love, who was lost in her own mind, and that at the end of the movie they ended up going together.
Yeah, lay down in bed and they both died because she died and he died with her. And it's love is important, and I know not everybody is lucky enough to experience that kind of true love, that kind of unconditional love. But when you do have it, it's something you have to treasure, and something that takes a lot of work, but in the end, it's all worth it. Anyway, enough about that. Rumination, a problem in anxiety and depression. I caught this from a YouTube video on my feed, on our feed there, and it caught my eye the way the guy was talking about how he suffered with anxiety and depression, and a lot of that goes hand in hand. And rumination is something that's very much part of that. We got in the article it starts to read, rumination is one of the similarities between anxiety and depression. Ruminating, what?
We have a comment from Nanjeo.
You two are rare to see in a couple, honestly. Not many couples like you, as honest and loving. Thank you, man. Yeah, it's, like I said, it has not been easy. We've had a lot of roadblocks, a lot of struggles, not only because of our transness, not only because of the families unaccepting, the community, has put a lot of strain on our relationship. But in the end, we've been as constant as a northern star, and the fact that we're Asperger's, that doesn't help any. I think that's one of our biggest, friction. But there's love. And when there's love, true unconditional love, anything can be worked through. And, that's what it's all about, in the end. Anyway, ruminating is simply repetitive going over a thought or a problem without completion. And I know a lot of trans individuals deal with this, in their head. It's constant inner voice. It's just, and that causes anxiety. When people are depressed, the theme of rumination are typically about being inadequate or worthless. Those in the LGBT community could definitely relate with that, I'm sure. The repetition and the feeling of inadequacy raise anxiety, and anxiety interferes with solving the problem. Then depression deepens.
Brain function plays a role in rumination in several ways, but one significant aspect of brain function relates to memory. People remember things that are related to each other in neural networks, and when people enter a woe is me network, the brain lights up connections to other times they felt that way. Ruminating is worsened by another difficulty of the depressed and anxious brain, inability to flexibly generate solutions. Brain chemistry makes it hard to switch to another perspective to find the way out of problems, so rumination intensifies. Both anxiety and depression are then reinforced.
It's almost like a very reptilian type brain. Like you see a dog when a dog is barking at something, at someone, or another dog, or another cat or person, and they're in this like state of being that it's just they can't get out of it. Well, human beings do the same thing. That reptilian brain just starts to focus on problems, and they start remembering, well, I've had this problem before. Then those feelings start coming in, and then those feelings generate anxiety, and it's a vicious cycle. A vicious
Yeah.
cycle that one needs to learn to work through or work out of in order for one to be able to deal with the issue. Rumination can be switched off by two good methods. Number one, get out of the negative neural network. And number two, tackle one problem at a time with planning. And rumination by exciting the negative memory network. In other words, retraining, the positive and getting out of that negative memory network. First, stop ruminating on negatives and activate a neural network of times when everything worked out okay. These might be hard to remember, because people usually look at the negative. Neural networks are triggered by mood, and your mood might have connected to other moods when you were afraid of bad outcomes. You can deliberately decide to recall instead of times when things worked out, even though you had been afraid.
Those networks of anxiety can lead into remembering positive outcomes. However, ruminating may get you too negative to shift into a network of positive thoughts without a memory jogger. What can shift you into a different network? Number one, use family or friends to help you remember. Ask them to help you think of times when things turned out fine. Conversation with encouraging others can shift your attention to a different memory network. And when others point out positive outcomes at your request, you start down a different neural path.
And I know it's hard because it's like that dog that is barking at the cat, at you, or at another dog. It's in this state of mind. How does Caesar's what's his name, the dog whisperer? How he gets the dogs out of the state is like he'll either hit the dog on the side, do something to like redirect that particular mindset. One of the same thing we have to do. And I know it's hard when people get into self pity, defensive mode, and they lose all rationale. And it's like there's got to be a way where you could nudge yourself out of that negative unrational mode of thinking, where you could like, okay, I don't need to be here. I have mind enough to be able to get myself out of the situation and out of this anger. We're not some dog. I mean, dogs are very smart, but we are very evolved human beings. So if we get out of our mind and more into our heart space, we might be able to deal with this and tackle this a little bit better. Number two, interfering with rumination may be help with a memory jogger for times you were feeling good by going over pictures of happy memories. As you look them over, try to recall not just what you were thinking then, but what your body felt like. You might be surprised that joy and happiness are physical sensations. To get in touch with a body memory, scan your senses. What you see, you taste, you touch, you smell, you hear. And you're angry at your partner, your loved one, your husband, your wife, because whatever they done frustrated you. Well, don't just think of that moment. Go back into like, hey, why did I marry this person in the first place? What made me fall in love? Don't just continue that vicious anger and fighting cycle.
Number three, music holds the power to put us directly back into a place when we listen to it, usually entering into the mood we were in when we listened, and then the pieces of memory fill in with people and situations. As one rather depressed person I know put it, I like to listen to songs from high school and college, or before things started getting complicated. Maybe life was not perfect, but the music makes me feel good when I hear it. Is there a time frame or a type of music that puts your memory back into a good place?
I love music. I mean, I think even making music, no matter how upset or whatever, you start making music, you start creating, you start going to a place in your heart versus your mind, and it's amazing how you feel, because it's all connected to other sensory that are not your typical five. We're talking about something deeper that's within inside of us. Number four, another rumination interrupter is to put yourself literally into a place to connect with things turning out for you. Taking a walk in a location that helps you enter a positive frame of mind can only be helpful.
The idea of going into another network is not to get lost in old memories, but to find a way into a positive neural network from which you may springboard into a solution to your problem.
And that could also go in your mind, in your thinking, and that takes you to a negative place. Memories that'll make you feel guilt, memories that'll make you miss people from the past. When you find yourself going into that neural pathway, into that programming, you've got to like nudge yourself out of it because you know what's going to happen there on afterward. The same feelings of guilt, depression, anxiety, anger, frustration, guilt, all that's going to come back in. So we've got to learn, to see where our minds are taking us and gently nudge ourselves out of that to get ourselves out of that particular moment. Separate the problems and make plans. Rumination might prevent you from solving the problem or from moving on if you don't have a solution at the moment. Try to unhook problems from each other to see if you have an actual problem you can solve or just a worry to eliminate.
One example of this is a man who has decidedly depressed and anxious about his work life that was fraught with debt, angry colleagues, and overwhelming reports for expenses and hours put in. He actually knew what to do about the debt, but rather than saying to himself, quote, "I know what I will do," and setting that problem aside, he tangled it up with a different problem. Quote, "I know what to do about the debt, but everyone will find ways to tell me they are angry about it."
Now he was ruminating on what to say to make them be less angry. Then he thought, quote, "I wish I could walk away from them. If I can get caught up with my expenses and reports, I could consider looking for another job," unquote. And he began ruminating about whether he could find a different job. That problem had nothing to do now with what he wanted everyone to be happy, and neither affected finding the time to do his paperwork and non-connected to how hard it is to find new work. But he connected unrelated problems and could not let go of any of them. If this kind of rumination sounds like the way you go from one problem to another, and that's the average individual. Even with the trans thing. Oh my God, how do I get rid of this? And I need to do that. And before you have this whole scenario going on in your head. Now you're anxious, now you're depressed, as matters worse, you're on hormones that make things even worse. It's just, is it really worth it?
Compounding problem onto another problem.
Yeah.
And when you compound it, it only makes it even more pronounced and a bigger problem to have to overcome.
Yeah.
Number one, make a list of problems on your mind and put them in columns side by side so you can see if there are any connected parts.
Number two, identify, can you make a plan for the first one? If so, write it down with action steps.
Number three, do the same thing for each problem.
Number four, look across the columns. Are any action steps connected to each other? If so, which steps comes first? That is where you will direct your first effort. If they're not connected, then pick which action plan you will attend to first.
Number five, see if any one problem in any one column has no solution. Then write down a date when you might have more information to make it useful to think about it again. This is now just a worry. And until it is possible to find a solution, you don't need to think about it in the meantime.
Number six, when any of these problems comes up, say to yourself, stop, I have a plan. Refusing yourself the permission to rethink a plan is hard, but worth the effort.
The better you get at interrupting rumination, the lighter your depression will become. It is possible to stop brain patterns that contribute to anxiety and depression by stopping rumination. It gets easier the more you practice, so stick with it, and you will soon be able to do it automatically.
And that beats taking pills for depression. That beats taking pills for anxiety. That beats, not being able to go out in the street and hang out with people because you're so anxious or you can't deal with things. And usually, any problem has a solution. And if you can't find an immediate solution, then you shouldn't be worrying about it. You should just put it on the side and get to it when it really matters. Otherwise, you're just going to make yourself crazy.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's just...
I used to worry about my taxes, It's like, oh my gosh, it's January. Tax time is coming. I need to get started. There's so much to do.
Well, that's what they do. That's this kind of world that we live in, this matrix that makes everyone worry about everything. That's why people get tons and tons of gray hair. They get wrinkled, they get sick, and they die.
Am I going to get audited this year? What can I do? It's like this constant fear. Am I going to have enough money? Mm-hmm. And it's like all these thoughts and things like that for something that's going to happen in April,
Right.
and there's
Well,
nothing you can do
that's
about
part of
it.
the rumination. I mean, it's just like a constant, it's like a worry word. And I think we're probably trained to think that way from the time we're little, because our parents, unfortunately, do a good job of making us worry about things that we really shouldn't be worried about, you know? And they create that network, that neural programming that we continue to take on for the rest of our lives. Instead of cutting the umbilical cord and say, you know what? I don't live at home anymore. I don't have to do the same things I did when I was a child. I'm a grown up now. I can change the way I feel and think. I'm the master of my thought and my emotions and my feelings. You know,
You said it.
that's right. All right, humans. They're 10% human and 90% bacteria. I found this article on something regarding, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was regarding going to the gym. Oh my God, there's so many germs in the gym. Do you know how many germs you're touching when you touch free weights? And people have become germ phobes. It's crazy. It's
I
like,
remember, like, like kids, they have the little play areas at the malls and stuff like
mm,
that, and parents would be like, "Oh, we can't let our kids go in there because it's full of germs and it's gonna like get our kids infected and all this
mm,
stuff." And it's like back in the day, kids were playing in the dirt.
mm.
Kids were playing. They were making mud pies and eating them.
Yep, that's
You
how you
know.
develop B12, and that's how you develop antibodies. And then all this like Perel and all this antibacterial soap. It's like your entire body is made up of bacteria. You're killing the good bacteria that's keeping the bad bacteria away. Same thing goes inside your gut. The things that you're eating are killing the colonies that need to be there and feeding the wrong ones. Although, it's a balance. And, we need to make peace with the bacterial world. Anyway, the article reads, we're moving from a multi-decade focus on killing all bacteria via soaps, detergents, antibiotics, and hand sanitizers to a new understanding of the complex bacterial system in our bodies and in the world around us.
We now understand that humans are 90% microbial, but only 10% human.
Go figure.
The average human has over 100 trillion microbes in and on their body, and many of the latest discoveries are challenging previously held ideas about good and bad bacteria. We are witnessing the shift from a world ruled by the antibacterial obsessed and non-stop antibacterial marketing to one that has a heightened awareness of the importance of the microbial ecosystem, the microbiome.
In Sparks and Honey's recent report, Time to Get Dirty, Why the Ancient Wisdom of Microbes is the Future of Health, well, we explored 5 emerging areas that are shaping the conversation and debate around the microbiome. Number 1, understanding an invisible world. Microbes have been ignored because they haven't been understood and because they're invisible to our eyes. This lack of understanding has allowed decades of poor relationships with these microscopic beings. Our modus operandi was to kill them rather than synchronize with them. The debate over the microbiome will rage on as the fear of the invisible and little understood will drive the masses in short term.
Number 2, helicopter parents and Purell. Parents have become obsessed with keeping their kids clean. Constant washing, sanitizing, keeping the kids out of the dirt. Contrary to popular beliefs, many of these practices not only kill bad bacteria, but also destroy the important good bacteria. Can parents begin to embrace ancient wisdom and create a greater balance with the microbial world?
My mother was told by a doctor in Cuba, he was like, don't get dirty. It's like, you got to let your child get dirty and be exposed to stuff, because I was always getting sick because my mom was trying constantly keep me sanitized. And that's not good. You need to let your kids run around. You got to build up that immune system. That's why we are so sick this day and age. It's like we had the flu here. It was like a major outbreak.
Yeah.
We didn't get it.
They said, "Oh, you guys got to be careful going to the gym because people are getting sick left and right." We worked out. We worked on the same equipment that these people that are sick worked out on. And here's the thing: if you take care of your immune system, guess what?
Will take care of you.
That's right, and it's going to protect you because it is able to defend itself against anything that comes up against it. And if you get sick, it is because you're not doing enough to protect yourself and to keep your immune system protected.
Protecting health. You have too little healthy bacteria. You have too little frontline workers, white blood cells, cancer-fighting cells, immune system cells that keep viruses and bacteria, bad bacteria away. You need to build those up.
The common cold is not common. The common cold is a result of our,
lack of immune system. The body's trying to, when you get a cold, your body is trying to get rid of toxins that you've accumulated because you just keep adding toxins in and toxins in. So the body goes, oh, I've got to do something, create a fever so that it could kill whatever's in there. I have to create something, make you sneeze, cough, develop mucus. You could cough and take all that stuff out of your system. Same thing when you have bowel problems. Your body's trying to clean itself out.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Number 3, bacteria and chronic illness. Scientists have discovered that allergies, obesity, and many other illnesses are linked to our microbiome. We continue to explore the importance of microbe integration during birth, breastfeeding, and even contact with nature.
That's another thing. Many children are not being breastfed. They're drinking formula milk and cow's milk and milk that don't belong in their system, so they're not building their immune system the way that is meant to be built from the time they're little.
And they're being kept inside, so they're not exposed to nature.
Exactly. The sun is very important. Number 4, mapping your microbiome. Just as we spent the last 2 decades creating a deeper understanding of our genome, scientists are now beginning to map our microbiome. Companies such as American Gut and New Biome are blazing the trail of microbiome research and microbiome mapping.
Of course, for a profit.
Yes.
Number 5, microbiome feng shui. As the latest research in microbiology begins to fuel other industries, we are seeing microbes being leveraged in diet, food, beauty products, and even design. Recently, the TED presentation from Jessica Green explained the important role microbes play in our everyday life.
I mean, if you think about it, people overshower, people overput stuff on their skin, on their face. They're just not allowing these healthy microbes that live on you to protect you, because you're killing it with all these soaps, all these chlorine water and excess chemicals in your face and stuff. That's not good for you. You're killing your good guys, and then when you kill your good guys, you allow the bad guys to come in. This shift is an opportunity to begin to adjust market research, product design, and consumer messaging to work with the recent discoveries in microbiology. We will soon see a backlash against antibiotics, hand sanitizers, and household cleaning products. Will modern families begin to embrace playing in the dirt and building a healthy microbial ecosystem to their families?
This backlash will lead to new opportunities for brands that understand how to navigate the shift to a new relationship with our microbiome.
Exactly. It's so important, really. I mean, people are used to not feeling well, and they're used to being sick, and that's not our norm. That's not our norm at all.
No, I mean, it's not even the default.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, every now and then the body needs to get sick to get rid of the toxins. It's like, no, your body doesn't need to get sick. The body doesn't want to get sick. It always wants to stay in a state of ease, not dis-ease.
Homeostasis, and you got to do everything within your power to keep your immune system up, to keep your body detoxified by the stuff that you're eating, and not putting stuff in there that don't belong in there that will make it toxic. Okay, I've always been very interested in autism, and most people don't realize that autism, it's almost like your nervous system attacking itself and on a little wacko, and there's very different forms of autism, and more individuals are being diagnosed with autism, some form in that spectrum, and more children are being born this way, and it's because our nervous system has taken a massive assault. But there are ways, and this article will explain, how to cure, or the actual name even of the show is, Can Autism Be Cured? And I know that there's a lot of autistic Asperger people in the trans community, and there's just so many now, like just about every other child, in C and girl has some form of quirkiness to them. I hate labels because it actually makes people seem like they're defected. Like we have Asperger's, and to me, I don't find that to be a negative unless we're arguing because we get into that,
Mhm.
Aspergery mode. But an Aspergery mode is like a truthful wanting to explain oneself, not necessarily wanting to be right, although it comes out that way. It's just like, but wait, you're misunderstanding me. This is what I mean. And you could go on and on and on, and it's like a little battle, but it's almost like a broken record when you get stuck, and you want to like explain yourself. You want to like, it's like, are you listening to me? And in reality, when people get into that mode, it's like you can't really listen. You just get like that dog that's barking at the cat and the dog, kind of like a rumination. I think that's
Mhm.
very common. Anyway, today most people believe that autism is a genetic brain disorder. I'm here to tell you that this isn't true. The real reason we are seeing increasing rates of autism is simply this. Autism is a systemic body disorder that affects the brain. A toxic environment triggers certain genes in people susceptible to this condition, and research supports this position.
Think about it. Rates of autism have skyrocketed over the years from an estimated one child in 3,000 to just one in 50 kids today. Sure, wider criteria for diagnosis and better detection might explain some of it, but not an increase of this magnitude.
Dramatic scientific discoveries have taken place during the last 10 to 20 years that reveal the true cause of autism and turn conventional thinking on its head. For example, Martha Herbert, MD, a pediatric neurologist from Harvard Medical School, has painted a picture of autism that shows how core abnormalities in the body system like immunity, gut function, and detoxification play a central role in causing the behavioral and mood symptoms of autism. And you've seen how everything that we've talked today has kind of led to this.
Mhm. Article continues. Recently, I treated a 2.5-year-old boy named Sam. He was born healthy but diagnosed with autism after his vaccination for measles, mumps, and rubella at 22 months. Every child with autism has unique genetics, causes, or triggers, and it is not usually one thing, but a collection of insults, toxins, and deficiencies piled on susceptible genetics that leads to biochemical train wrecks we see in these children.
When I first saw him, this little boy was deep in the inner worldless world of autism. Watching him was like watching someone on a psychedelic drug trip. So we dug into his biochemistry and genetics and found many things to account for the problem he was having.
He had very high level of antibodies to gluten. He was allergic to not only wheat, but to dairy, eggs, yeast, and soy, about 28 foods in total. He also had a leaky gut, and his gut was very inflamed. Sam was deficient in zinc, magnesium, and manganese, vitamins A, B12, and D, and omega 3 fats. Like many children with autism, he had trouble making energy in his cells or mitochondria.
And we have to remember that everything starts in the cell. If your cells are unhealthy and are imbalanced, then everything else, including your mental health and nervous system, will be affected. His amino acids necessary for normal brain function and detoxifications were depleted. And his blood showed high levels of aluminum and lead, while his hair showed very high level of antimony and arsenic, signs of a very toxic little boy. His levels of sulfur and glutathione were low, indicating that he just couldn't muster the power to detox all these metals. In fact, his genes showed a major weak spot in glutathione metabolism, which is the body's main antioxidant and major detoxification highway for getting rid of metals and pesticides. Our bodies don't really know how to get rid of stuff a lot of times.
We had somebody come and say, "Sup, guys? Been following for a while. Want you on my channel. What's the best way to contact you?"
Hi there, Naomi. You could either write to us at actually what's up with the Cummings at gmail.com.
Well, she asked about the Gypsy Blue Nomad.
Yeah, I mean, either or. We
Yeah,
get emails on either. I also create a Gmail for our channel.
Gmail.
Cool.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and we'd love to be on.
Definitely.
Share anything that you would want to ask us.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Sam
also had trouble with a key biochemical function called methylation that is required to make normal neurotransmitters and brain chemicals, and is critical for helping the body get rid of toxins. This showed up as low levels of homocysteine, signs of problems with folate metabolism, and high methylmalonic acid, signs of problems with B12 metabolism. He also had 2 genes that set him up for more problems with his system.
And most people don't realize that, it's not just you're low on B12, it's like your body doesn't know how to metabolize it. And, certain things like homocysteine and methylamine acids and things of that nature where people really don't understand, and they're just eating foods and their body's not responding to the food that you're eating, and then you're taking medication and hormones and things that just throws all the chemistry off. We're one big chemistry set. So finally, he also had very high levels of oxidative stress or free radical activity, which a lot of us do because of the foods we eat and the stress we endure, including markers that told me that his brain was inflamed and under free radical fire. This may also seem complicated, but it really isn't. When I've seen any patient, I simply work through the 7 keys to the ultra wellness based on functional medicine to see how everything is connected, create a plan to get to the cause of the problem, and then help each patient deal with all the biochemical and physiological rubbles that those causes have left along the road.
To create a roadmap for recovery, you just take away what's bothering the patient and give his body what is missing and needs to thrive based on the individual's biochemical uniqueness. Then the body does the rest. Here is the roadmap I used to help Sam recover.
Step 1, fix his gut and cool the inflammation there. This step includes a number of different tactics, including taking away gluten and other food allergies, and getting rid of his yeast and antifungal, killing off the toxic bacteria in the small intestine with specific antibiotics, replenishing healthy bacteria with probiotics, and helping him digest his food with enzymes.
Step 2 would be to replace the missing nutrients to help his genes work better. In Sam's case, we added back zinc, magnesium, folate, and vitamins A, B6, B12, and D. Supported his brain with omega-3 fats.
Step number 3, detoxify and reduce oxidative stress. Once his biochemistry and nutrition was tuned up, we helped him detoxify and reduce oxidative stress. Improve nutrition, reduce inflammation, heal the gut, detoxify. This should sound familiar.
As I said before, the keys of ultra wellness can help no matter what the disease or condition. Biology has basic laws, which we have to follow and understand. All the details of Sam's story fit into these laws. We just have to dig deep, peel back the layers, and understand what is going on. When we do this, the results are nothing short of miraculous.
And it makes perfect sense, After following a gluten-free diet and treating his gut for 3 weeks, Sam showed dramatic and remarkable improvement. He was getting back much of his language skills and showing much more connection and relatedness in his interaction. Because if any of you have ever interacted with an autistic child, I used to work with pediatrics and a lot of autistic kids, they have a hard time giving eye contact. They have a hard time interacting. They prefer to play by themselves. They're in their own little world. That's why he initially said it was like watching somebody on psychedelic. It's like hard to reach that person. So when you finally get eye contact from that child, a parent that can't even hug their child because they don't like being hugged, can't even have eye-to-eye contact because the child's always turning away because something's going on neurologically in their brain. So for the first time ever, when a parent actually gets to make that connection with the child, it's the most amazing feeling that a person can get, So after 4 months, he was more focused, unstuck, and verbal. After 10 months, his bowels were back to normal. He was verbally fluent, mainstream in school, and he lost his diagnosis of autism. Now that's amazing.
After 2 years, all his abnormal tests were normal, including the high metals, gut inflammation, and damage to his mitochondria and free radicals. And more importantly, the child was totally normal. Not every child has such a dramatic recovery, but many improve, and some improve dramatically using the approach of functional or systems medicine. This is just the beginning.
And this is Dr. Mark Hyman, MD. You've watched a lot of his videos.
I think the famous Miami Dolphins quarterback, um, Dan Marino, had a son that was autistic, but he overcame it.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this is what he used.
Probably so. There's a lot of people that have actually gone. I used to have clients who had an autistic child, and they were working through the food thing as well. And I mean, it's very promising. Like I said, not everybody has such a dramatic outcome. Sometimes it takes a little longer. Sometimes, the damage in the neural system is so bad that it takes a lot longer to actually heal. It takes, the parents being diligent, not allowing your kid to eat things that everybody else eats. But it's worth the try. Well, what else is there? I mean, modern medicine really doesn't have any cures for autism or any promising. In fact, they actually created it with a vaccination. And I know a lot of people don't believe that. But if you're putting something in your body that's toxins, the first thing that's going to be affected is your nervous system. And at such a young age, babies are very susceptible to whatever toxins you're putting in there. The nervous system is going to react. The brain is going to react. You're going to get inflammation. It's just how it works.
It's like, that soft spot on the baby's head is very susceptible, right? It's not fully developed yet, and it doesn't really close until years later, right?
Exactly.
So here we are pumping vaccinations into children that are still, although they're out of the womb, it doesn't mean they're not developing as human beings. I mean, they're actually still being born as they enter, and leave their mother's womb and enter the earth. They're still being born. They're birthing themselves as they grow and develop, especially as they turn, to 5 years old.
And it's not normal to vaccinate, 80 vaccines a baby has to go through, and the first thing when they're born, they're whisked away from their mother, and taken into this cold room. And it's not, I mean, that's not how it was before all this modern medicine. We didn't. I mean, that's crazy, and people are accepting this as normal.
They were born into love.
Exactly. If you want to read more of this article, you can Google "Why Current Thinking About Autism is Completely Wrong" by Dr. Mark Hyman, MD. Really good guy. We encounter this really fascinating topic, and I think it kind of got sparked by the book we're reading now, Many Lives, Many Masters, in a sense. And we are looking about spirit. Was it something?
Well, initially, when I told you, I feel like what happened to me was that I actually, this me that I am is not the person that I was before. Although this body is the same vehicle, the spirit that I am, the person that I am, doesn't have anything to do with the person that I was in the past. And I think that it got you to thinking and stuff, and you started looking into this topic and found this verbiage that they use called walk-ins. And basically, like people, in the trans community would say, I feel as if I was born into the wrong body, right? And walk-ins is like what happens when souls, literally, without dying, they actually swap places. The body doesn't die, but there's like a soul that exists, and then another soul exists, and they make a pact or an agreement before a person's born to take over at some point, and to influence the person. And it could be a walk along, it could be a braid. Now we're discovering there could be two souls actually, there. But it's very fascinating.
It is, and I know a lot of people that are just like, ooh, they only believe like the story of the Bible, and they only believe that when you die, you just die. But when you really get to deep thinking and realize that what would be the purpose of just having a human being be born to suffer and then to die without any lessons, without any growth, without any kind of reasoning behind our existence and our existence beyond these physical bodies, because there's more to us than these bodies. There's a soul, there's a spirit, and we've been looking a lot into that and watching a lot of videos and now reading that book, and it's part of the awakening, the spiritual path that we all search of, because to me the biblical explanation in religions have always been too simple, and not to disrespect anyone. You are entitled to your belief system and more power to you. But I always needed more. And it looks like you've always needed more, even though you were raised,
Well, I was raised in the Christian faith and everything, but I was questioned.
Yeah.
I always had these like doubts of what in the world, what does this whole mean? I mean, it's like, okay, like the simple story, as many millions and billions of people are going to be celebrating or remembering Easter Sunday this
Yeah.
coming Sunday, about the crucifixion and Jesus and all that and the sacrifice. And I would ask myself, but okay, he was God, but he was born in the body of a man, of a human.
Hmm.
Could he not have felt no pain and just kind of like gone along with the piercing and all
Right.
that? And it was like, this story just has too many holes in it. Too many what ifs, too many woulda, shouldas,
Yeah,
and
and
all this.
too many characters in other cultures that pretty much resemble the same thing. In Egypt,
As we found out
yeah,
later,
yeah.
I mean, but these things were never taught to me
Right.
going to Christian
Of course,
school.
yeah.
I was always told that, for one, the Bible, the earth is only 6,000 years old. It can't be any older than that. That's it.
Right, and we find that that's absolutely false. I mean, the Earth is billions of years old,
And it's been destroyed and recreated and destroyed and recreated. And there is so much that has been hidden from us. This whole concept of reincarnation is something that many Christians are going to like balk at and say, "Oh, that can't be. That's doctrine of demons."
But wait a minute, didn't Jesus that they all follow reincarnate?
In the sense, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's accounts of different patriarchs showing up in Jesus' time and coming to be, to be people to recognize, hey, that was Moses and that was, Isaiah and stuff. So, I mean, but the simple fact that, back in AD 325, Constantine and the Council of Nicaea and all these bishops and religious leaders of the time and people in power decided what would go into becoming what was known as the Holy Bible.
Right.
And also that any doctrine of any inkling of reincarnation was exonerated from any memory of any kind of belief. So these are things that have been lost. I think the library at Alexandria, there was probably so much about our humanity, about understanding where we're from, who we really are as godlike beings, that has been pretty much decimated and put under and buried, hidden away. And this is the same kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, and to me, the whole simpleton, once upon a time God created the earth, and Adam and Eve, and Jesus. It's just okay. And where does that get us? What? We die, we're born, we suffer, we die, we either go to heaven or hell. What does that solve? What kind of resolution? What kind of plan does this deity have for us? Unless it's just some really masochistic or type of deity. If there's not something more to the typical scenario that religion tries to teach us.
And how is it fair to base the life of someone on like 80 to 100 maybe years of life and compared to a whole eternal existence? I mean, that you would actually think that it would be fair for a creator to judge a person, a spirit, on the the simple little like few years that one lived on this planet.
Exactly.
You know,
And
I don't think the creator's like that. I
no,
think
I
that,
don't either.
you know, we're here to learn, to grow, to
Yeah.
make mistakes, to miss the mark, to sin,
Yeah.
and
So we
to
can
make
grow,
mistakes
so
and to get better.
and to interact and love one another and learn what unconditional love is all about. And that love is all that matters. Hey, Teen, thank you for joining us. Thank you. She says, thanks for the very hopeful message today. And I think Nam and Naomi were trying to
Interact.
Nam was trying to find out when Naomi's interview is going to be with us. And Naomi never responded. I don't know, she's not there anymore. But anyway, this is a very interesting article here. For the majority of us, we incarnate and remain in our chosen bodies until death. But in certain cases, the spiritual realm can throw a curveball and change the general order on things. In some cases, individuals' soul can trade places. You heard right. The official term is soul transference, but we generally refer to this experience as walk-in. What goes on exactly when souls swap places?
The walk-in experience. The walk-in experience is not to be taken lightly. The idea of a soul just coming in and taking over is not what it's about. There are careful spiritual considerations and permission is always required. This is not an instance of possession where a spirit attempts to hijack the body, nor is it channeling where a spirit enters a body for a brief period to deliver a message. Walk-ins are allowed to take over a body when a soul arbitrarily leaves or agrees to vacate. Approval must be granted for a walk-in to occur.
An agreement is made before souls can walk in. Sometimes an arrangement is even made before a person incarnates. Two souls can make a pact that says at a particular time one will vacate the body so that the other can take over. It almost sounds like a signing a lease or renting an apartment. Why would such an experience occur? Well, in most cases, when a being incarnates into a body on this physical plane, he or she inhabits the vehicle until death occurs. We all come to this planet to learn, experience, and fulfill certain contracts. Once the soul has accomplished this mission, the choice are to remain in the body and work on a new project, die, or walk out and vacate the body. If the being chooses to walk out, then an agreement is made with another soul to walk in.
So let's talk about that personally. Like in my own life, I realized, that in the life that I had before, that my purpose was pretty much to bring life into the world, to bring another seed into this planet, into this realm. And when that was done, when that was over, I felt like there was nothing else for that person to do. It was like life, the creator had put that person on the shelf and had pretty much kind of said, okay. And then I realized that I wasn't done, living as a person. And it was like an interesting interaction because I've always had this sense of duality to myself, and I always felt like there was this walk-in soul that was part of me. And you know, eventually in my early 40s, I realized that I needed to do something about it. I needed to make a change. And, for me, my gender journey was the change that brought about that walk in to actually replace the person that was living there before. And that person, I remember very vividly that my now ex was always saying, like, during the time where things were taking place and I was transferring, or that soul exchange was happening, I'm losing you. I don't know what's happening to you. You're becoming a stranger to me. And all these things were happening. I mean,
Yeah,
that's pretty much kind of like what we're talking about.
exactly,
Isn't it?
exactly. Yeah, very much so.
So how a walk-in happens. Walk-in experiences are as unique as the individual souls involved, although in every case an agreement is made before the actual transference takes place. Generally, before the walk-in takes place, there is a preparation period, as I was talking about.
Right.
This period can be a few weeks or months before the event, or years. The walking soul will hang around the existing being for a period of time.
Yeah, and with me, I died when I was a little kid, and they brought me back to life. I feel that another soul latched on to me from that very time. So I've always felt that duality. I've always felt, and people have always told me that, I have this, you know, almost like two spirit type of thing, where I could be, you know, feminine in a sense, and then be very masculine. And I was never very feminine, but it was like two different spirits were inside of me. And I felt as time progressed, there was a time where, you know, the main spirit that I have now, which is Mark, completely took over. I think the other spirit kind of came back during the point where I had to nurture you. And there's,
Mhm.
I mean, and again, we don't understand this stuff exactly, and we're still trying to wrap our brains around it. But it's good to talk about it, and it's good to try to understand different things, not just be enclosed in one particular theory. Okay, so the idea is for the new soul to get used to the vibration of the body. It's about the habitat. Sometimes walking souls haven't incarnated for quite some time and need this period to adapt to the denser vibration of matter. Meanwhile, the vacating soul might feel a presence hanging around them on a change in energy.
Now, one of the things that really interested me was that in this present incarnation, our spirit is eternal.
Right.
But this is and will be the only journey that
Mm-hmm.
this body,
Yeah.
will ever go through
Exactly.
on this plane.
Yeah.
So
It's a new vehicle every
it's a
time.
new vehicle. And if a spirit hasn't incarnated itself into a body in a long time, it's gonna kind of
It's
be
be awkward.
a bit
It's like
awkward.
first time you ever drove a car. You got to get to know it. You got to get to, get a feel for it. The same thing goes with the spirit. It's got to get to know that vessel that it's vacating.
And there's a cellular memory
Oh yeah.
that the body has that the spirit is not aware of necessarily unless that spirit has been, with this person since birth.
Exactly.
They don't really understand all of the ramifications of their memory, of their past, of their history. So all this has to come, work through all that.
And I think that a lot of trans people are going through something like this, and that's why it's a very troublesome time. There's a lot of like, you know, anxiety, depression, lack of communication, lack of understanding of themselves and of others, because it's like this new spirit that has taken over, and it's hard.
And it's not like it's possession.
No.
It's actually just a transference of responsibilities. Like, okay, now you're responsible for this body, right? They may notice a change in personality. Perhaps they become fatigued or depressed. They may also feel a sense of relief and completion. Regardless, on some level, they understand that their journey is at an end. When the moment of transference occurs, the old soul will leave for the spiritual realm, and the new soul will meld its essence into the new embodiment. Most often, this event occurs while the body is asleep or in meditation, but it can also occur during an accident, illnesses, or emotional trauma. In some cases, both parties are fully conscious during the process. And emotional trauma is one of those things where the spirit, when it gets inflicted like that and hurt, it needs to renew itself. So it wants to escape the body, but the body may not be done doing what it needs to do.
And it talks about the accident, when you have an accident, and then a lot of times, okay, even though the other soul has left, there's still cell memory that has to be worked through. So you're still dealing in this new spirit that's in the body, still dealing with, like when you cut a chicken's head and the chicken still keeps running around, or when you cut a snake in half, it's still moving its body. There's cell memory, and there's still a lot of old patterns and old behaviors that have to be worked through.
And those are memories and behaviors that, I remember when we went to go see my mom. It was like almost like she didn't recognize me, not because I had changed so much physically, but because of my spirit just not being identifiable to her. It's like, and I didn't recognize her spirit either, you know. And there we are sitting at the table, and we're talking and stuff, and my sister and my mom were both so very cold and just like unlike connected to me.
Which is what happens to me with my mother. It's almost like she doesn't see Mark. It's like, what did I do with her daughter? That type of thing. And even though it's been 15 plus years, there's still that disconnect. There's still that she wants to hold on to the memory of Maritza. And ever since I became Mark, I almost feel like Mark doesn't have a family. I've never felt that familiar connection that I did when I was the spirit of Maritza was taking over the body.
It's like I don't have that connection to the kids that I had when I was living in a different, way. I mean, it's like the person, and I remember my ex telling me, the kids don't want another mom. They have me. They don't need another mom. What purpose are you going to serve in their lives? And it was like, and that's the truth. I mean, it's like there's all this crying in the trans community about losing our loved ones and, not being able to see our children and all this. There's this one specific trans woman who's traveling the world, talking about how she has lost the relationship she had with her son and how her wife doesn't, or ex doesn't let them, see them and all that. And it's like, maybe it's not part of the journey of that child to experience a relationship.
And that's what we have to learn as spirit beings, that everything happens for a reason, and beyond our human mind understanding. Sometimes, we have to face pain, we have to face situations that we may not understand, but they're there as a karmatic type event, not as a form of punishment, because when people hear karma, they always think it's punishment, but it's just a contract that we have to fulfill within the group of spirits and soul that we've interacted with in lifetime after lifetime, and things that are not to our conscious understanding. These are subconscious things that we as spirits have to learn through like meditation and just experiencing a growth of our spirits.
But maybe we as spirit beings want these things to happen, although our body doesn't want them to take place. Maybe our spirit is longing to feel that sense of suffering and pain that is what is all about being human. I mean, if we leave this earth, it's almost like we can't feel, but as long as we're here, it's like our spirits want in that physical incarnation to be able to feel
it all,
what it is to be human. It's like they say that Jesus took the shape of a human, and that he was God, but he let go of all of his godly qualities, and he decided to just experience humanity.
That's what we're here
and
to
that's
do.
What we're here to do.
Exactly.
That's what we're supposed to do, right? With that,
we can't fear pain. We've got to experience it and be grateful for that pain, because that pain will teach us something. The mind wants to numb the pain with pills, with alcohol, with food, with running away. But the soul, the spirit knows that, hey, I've got to go through this in order for me to be able to get to the next level, as in a video game. I have to fulfill my contract. Because if I don't fulfill my contract and the reason I came here, I'm going to have to come back again. And then the situation may be even worse, from the initial plan that we set for ourselves.
But the interesting thing is that, these plans are made, and it's like, it's not just that it's a video game, but, and getting to another level, but that, what we do affects other people as well, and the decisions that we make, whether it's a dad who walks out on their family, and because of that, and I'm watching American Idol and The Voice and other shows like these, and they always have a story about one of the contestants that basically experience great loss, and that shaped them as an individual, as a person, and they're stronger now. They're more capable of handling things than they were before. And if it wasn't for the hardness of having to deal with, an abusive parent, or being given up for adoption, or, suffering, in some way, then they wouldn't be who they are. They wouldn't appreciate things when they got them, or when they were able to accomplish certain things.
It's the path that we have to take in order to evolve, so that we can set in motion other people's path, because we're all interconnected. Those individuals that want to continue to come back and continue to repeat the fifth grade, you don't even realize that, yeah, you may want to continue to repeat the fifth grade because you think it's kind of cool to be here on this third dimension. But after a while, repeating the fifth grade gets a little boring. You get a little tired of that. Besides that, you repeating the fifth grade makes other people who have surpassed the level of different dimensions have to come back to replay the role with you, because you're kind of like holding the pack behind, because we're all interconnected. So it's really, we can't think of this as a selfish spirit thing, because we're all connected. We all have to reach that level of wherever it is, dimensional bliss, whatever it is that we're aiming to go to and grow.
And another thing that I was thinking about was that part of human suffering, and how, in that book, Many Lives, Many Masters, that, the spirit masters told this person that the book's about, that, they were going through suffering and all this other thing in their past lives, because the book's about past lives. And they were basically like in pain, or had cancer or something. And it's like, it's always this thing about feeling sorry for someone because of what they're going through and the suffering that they're having. And then the spirit master was like, it's just a body.
Yeah.
It will reincarnate.
It's like they're worried about getting burned, going inside the house.
Right.
And why didn't you go? And why did you send them down? And the spirit goes, it's just a body. I mean, it's like we take this so seriously, and it's going to take care of your body while you have it, because you need the body and the tool and the cells to be working in the proper frequency for you to get to where you're going. But don't get so attached to it, because it's temporary. It's something fleeting moment. Human mind, time seems like an eternity, but in spirit time, there is no time, and it's like 100 years to us is like a second to a spirit.
And the message for a trans person, if you're out there listening, is it's just gender.
Yeah.
If you reincarnate in the future, you may come as this or that. It really, that's not what life is about. It's not about being a specific sex. And you're free to present yourself however you want to present yourself.
As creation, because we're creator creation is our canvas. And
some of us, it is part of our journey. It is part of the way that we explore suffering, that we explore growth as an individual. But see, the problem is that in the trans community, they latch on to that physical embodiment as being the sole principal reason for their existence on this planet. And if they can't get that existence, then they don't know what to do with themselves.
Exactly, and they suffer needlessly. Anyway, the ending of the actual article, the new life phase. After the walk-in episode, each soul has the opportunity to embark on a new life phase. The exiting soul moves on to realm, while the walk-in adapts to life in the body. It's getting extremely challenging on many levels. Aside from learning to exist in the physical, the soul also the life of the previous inhabitant, because now they have to clean up after the first soul's mess.
Or organization.
Yeah.
Compared to the walkout, the walk-in will most likely exhibit a completely different personality. Likes, dislikes, and behavior patterns will be different. Overall, the new soul will adapt to its surroundings and environment, often with a sense of emotional detachment. This being is here to learn and possibly complete some karma.
Whatever it is, the soul is on a mission and eager to fulfill it. A walk-in experience can help both souls accomplish their task. That's also a very important point. Maybe the initial soul could not complete the task, so they had to, like, it's like a relay,
Tag team.
tag team or relay. So very interesting stuff, to really think about, and not just find oneself enclosed in this religious box and enclosed in victimhood, which most of us tend to feel, especially in the LGBT community. We feel we want equality. We feel, that we're not being heard. And it's not about you. It's not just one person. This is a collectiveness, and everything that we're seeing going on around us, which the world's turning upside down. There's a purpose behind it. There's a purpose to allow people to detach to all those material things, to detach from old belief systems, to grow and evolve, to change with a shift that's taking place.
To realize that making a mistake is not sin. It's actually another opportunity to grow, to actually become a more well-rounded individual. I mean, if you go down the wrong path and it leads to a dead end, you turn around, you come back, and then you go another way.
Find another path.
If that goes to another, drop off, then you go back. But it's not like you're making mistakes just to make them. You make them in order to explore your humanity and to explore what it is to be human and what it is to be able to grow and learn lessons of life.
Don't get stuck on labels, and diagnoses. People love to, like, well, I have gender dysphoria. And I know somebody wrote something that I didn't believe that gender dysphoria existed. Well, I don't believe in labels. I don't believe we have a disorder. I believe that we are given this opportunity as a spirit to grow. And if there was a shift in spirit, and that's what we're seeing here, it's not some sort of, you know, bad thing, complications that we have to fix and mend and add hormones and surgery. Is something for your evolution as a spirit being. And you should be grateful and show gratitude and be eager to grow and learn instead of feeling like a victim and need to fix. There's nothing to get fixed. You just got to grow.
And believe me, I understand. I mean, we all have been there. We wish things were
Oh, I
different.
know.
We would, we would pray that things were physically different for us, But, those are all things that are so like three-dimensional and they're
Yeah.
so like fleeting, I mean, as we age, really, beauty is not all it's cracked up to be. Lines are going to appear on your face. You're going to need to, take care of yourself. That's why we work out the way we do, because we know that as we age in the next 10, 15, 20 years, that it's critical for us to develop muscle mass in order to get us through
Yeah, and to be
as we
healthy,
get
not for
older.
vanity, because that's the wrong reason to go to the gym and the wrong reason to eat healthy. It's not about vanity. It's about health. It's about knowing that this is a temple that you have to take care of, and it's got to serve you another 40, 50 years, and you want it to be able to last. You don't want to live in doctor's offices. You don't want to live popping pills all day long. You want to be able to walk independently without a walker or a cane. You want to be able to enjoy life instead of sitting in a wheelchair,
Hmm.
or laying in bed all day because you can't get up because you have a massive migraine or whatever else. It's not about vanity.
We have Transistor Marty with us.
Hey,
Hi,
hey,
Marty.
Marty, thank you for tuning in.
Nice to see you. Thank you for your comments, and we look forward to watching your videos as well. You have so much insight and wisdom to share with, especially younger trans people of today.
Yeah, definitely.
It's amazing, to see that a person that's been on this journey like she has,
Right.
has so much to offer.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I find with the younger trans generation. The same with the lesbian and gay. They don't realize the road that those of us have walked prior to all this. Right now, the trans generation and gays and lesbians have it really easy because in the old days, you either got put in jail, killed. There was just no acceptance whatsoever. And although there's still a lot of work to be done, things are very different.
Yeah, we were watching that PBS special. Broke my heart, because I don't think the younger generation understands how much of a demonization it was for people to be even considered gay back in the 60s and stuff, and the path that has been blazed before you by people like you who came out in 2003 as a trans man, and people like Marty, that lived, their lives, in fear a lot of times, worrying and stuff, and all these wonderful things that the history of trans and the history of the LGBT community and what they've been through. Not to take it for granted.
Oh, well, that's pretty much dinner time, wrapping it up. Thank you guys for tuning in. And, we try to change things up and talk about things that matter and are important, not just in the LGBT community, but in the world. We try to empower people to help them deal with the problems that they face with, whether it's emotional, mental, or physical on a daily basis, and share the latest medical, fitness, wellness things that are out there. Also have to be very careful what you read, because not everything is true, and there's a lot of, whether it's, individuals that have something to gain from what they put out there. So we try to really pick and choose what we put out and share with you guys. She said something else.
Yeah.
You too inspire me. Thank you for your nature HRT alternative. I did a shout out on my last video about you too. Oh, wow, we'll watch that one.
That's so cool.
And thank you for your friendship, for tuning in, and for being an inspiration.
Absolutely. We're gonna do some binge watching of Transistor, Marty, and encourage other people to subscribe to
definitely
Marty's channel as well. And don't forget about us. We love to have people watch, and subscribe to us. And we also have a blog that we write in, and we have a PayPal, that people can donate to.
Subscribe and share,
and
all that good stuff. And Naomi, we need to check her out. She said she was going to write us.
She's going to write email us.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, guys, thank you once again for tuning in. And I guess we're done for today. But before we're done and say goodbye, we want to tell you guys that we love you. But remember to always love yourselves too. Have a good one.